got
Mhm,
my first day, and then I fell in love with co-working after that.
mhm.
And I got to go the in and outs, and we worked from 14 buildings to 41 buildings. I opened like three or four of them, worked on some really
Wow.
dope projects. Helped a team open one in Sao Paulo, helped another team, went on a tour of like a 2 week tour of like Japan, understand like how they did their things, and really got to understand the power of intentionally built space. So there's a lot of different things in the WeWork space that allows for community to be developed. You know,
Mhm,
the width between the offices or the hallways is tinier, so you can have these crash points and all of these different physical elements, the Kelvin lighting, all of these elements played into a huge role in like how you like looked at space.
mhm. All
Right.
right. Hi, everyone. And thank you for joining us for Features with Hello Advisor. This is a special content series that we're putting together to hear from some individuals that work in the startup space, to hear from their experiences and their stories. Now, today we have with us Stephen Harget, co-founder of Workspace. Hi, Stephen. How are you doing?
Good, good. Hi, how are you?
Good. We're super excited to have you. You're actually our first guest for the content series, so no
Well, I'm
pressure.
honored. I'm honored. I'm honored. Hopefully, it's like what is it? A job interview? You either want to be first or last, but never in the middle.
No, totally. And I hope it feels a little bit more relaxed than that.
Yeah.
But we are really looking forward to hearing from your experience as a founder, how you got started in entrepreneurship. So to start us off, just to sort of get us centered, for those unfamiliar, could you give us a brief introduction to your company Workspace?
Yeah, of course. So, workspace, you can think of workspace as the future of work fully managed. We are a workspace as a service platform that we provide a fully managed solution for end to end, where we find, transact, and then also manage different types of spaces such as collaborative spaces, event spaces, any sort of spaces that people need access to.
Gotcha. Sounds really cool. And I know
Yeah.
we'll get a little bit more into Workspace in a bit. Um, but as I was preparing for the interview and sort of taking in or having conversations with you, I know you weren't always a founder, and you've actually you've actually held multiple roles before becoming an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to hear from your experience working with bigger companies like Apple and Tesla to getting started in the startup community. Could you walk us through your professional journey?
Yeah, of course. So it's super interesting. Like I think like when I my professional journey is the quintessential definition of not linear. And it primarily started when I was in college. I remember senior year, everyone's like, "Oh my God, what are you guys gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And I had friends who were going to take the GMAT, going to law school, going to get their MBA, and then you had me, who was like dodging that question, right?
Hmm.
It's like, I don't know, maybe. And I remember I graduated. I was working at the Stamp Student Union, and my manager at the time she said, you could stay on a little bit longer till you figure out a job situation. I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. So and then it's like not only you have to stay on a little bit longer to figure out a job situation, but also figure out like where to live and all of those things. I had zero plans. And on a whim, I heard about this company that had a logo of a fruit. Didn't really know what they did. And I went online, applied, and like, they say that you have a higher chance of getting into Stanford than working at Apple. So for some strange reason, they hired me. And at the same time, to get housing, I moonlit as a teacher at a boarding school. So I was working at
Wow.
Apple during the day and then going at night and then staying up and being a teacher for high school students at the same time. And it was a really interesting dynamic and shift.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Um, I was making $11.25, and I remember being there. And what was the one thing that really stuck out to me? One is that I didn't understand the idea of stock. So you could purchase into it, and I wish I did because I would be extremely wealthy now. But I didn't
Hmm.
understand it because I'm like, you're not gonna take money out of my check. I make 11.25 an hour. But that was my first instinct that was my first instance of like technology and like the power of technology and and having it broken down into a way where it was super impactful. I was at Apple from iPhone 4 launch was my first day all the way through iPad 2 and saw the different developments. I emailed Steve Jobs once. His assistant
Wow.
emailed back and said, "Please don't ever do that again." And I was like,
Oh,
"I
all
had to
right.
do it." I mean, you have to do it, right? It's like
Yeah, for sure.
you had to do it. So I did it, didn't work out. And from there, I went down this pathway. I got introduced to the startup space. One of my friends, she said, she's like, "Oh, they're hiring at my job. It's a startup." And I'm like, "What's a startup?" She's like, "It's this place that's like new. And all I know is that we get beer and pizza on Fridays. And like, that seems fun." So I applied, and then that's kind of where this whole idea of my career has gone. Like I applied there, I think like 12 or 13 times over 2 years, and always a no, always a no, always a no. And still moonlighting as a teacher, I finally got a job, and the job was to make like 1,000 phone calls a day. And I'm like, hey, it's better than 11.25 an hour. So I did that, and I got to see the behind the scenes of a Series C or Series D pre-IPO company. And really, what excited me is that there was people my age or a little bit older than me who were in leadership or executive roles. And I'm like, oh, that's super great. Like if I work here for a year or two, I can like start to really advance in this career. And then my plan was to work a year or two and then go to like a normal job and then be like a
Mhm.
high level executive at like 28, right?
The
Uh
dream, right?
the dream. That was a dream. That was a dream. But none of that happened because that was like at that job I got fired.
Holy
Um
cow.
yeah, I got fired off rip. And I was like devastated and I didn't know what to do. I moved back here, got fired. It was horrible. I was like, oh my God, like there's something wrong with me, right? And then right after that was my first instance of startup. Like I was like, I'm gonna be a founder. So I went out, I got this, I got this idea on this was super early and I didn't like if I had have made it back then I probably would be a billionaire. But it was this idea where you press a button and it shows you everything around you that's open.
Mhm.
Like at any given time of the day, and you can interact. You can either go there, make a purchase. You can do all this in this app. And I it failed miserably. Had the idea, had the wireframe, ready to launch. Couldn't build it because I had no technical skills, and then couldn't fundraise it because I couldn't fundraise off an idea. And it failed miserably. And I found out the reason why it failed miserably because I was doing it out of spite. My whole drive for that idea was to prove everyone that I just left this other tech company that you shouldn't have fired me. Like I'm so it was out of spite. So that failed miserably. Obviously living at my mom's house. I need to now have a job.
Mhm.
So then I had all these weird jobs.
Mhm.
You know, I worked at a nonprofit, got fired from there. And then I worked at a social media company, definitely got fired from there. Uh, I worked at a couple of other tech startups, got fired from most of those.
Mhm.
And I remember I was sitting at this one company after being fired, I think like 4 or 5 times now. My then girlfriend, now wife's pregnant with our first kid, and I'm like, I need an actual job, right?
Mhm.
So I take this job at this company, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're gonna love our space. It looks just like Google." And I'm thinking, "Oh, we back, we back, we
Yeah.
back, we back."
Mhm.
And I take the interview, and I get hired. First day, I walk into the office. It looks nothing like Google. It's
Oh,
a bunch
brother.
of it's a bunch of cubicles. That's it. And I found out what the job was. It was just spiraling and dialing again. And I got the job. I was just so thankful because it's the most money I've made since being fired the first time. And after
Mhm.
that tumultuous time, I did a stint at Trader Joe's for a bit. It was a wild time. But I all in all, I worked at a dog store. All in all, like I remember sitting in that seat, like, okay, I got a desk job. I'm gonna smile and dial and make enough money to support my family and all
Mhm.
those things. I had a stint at Tesla between there. I remember that job was just draining. It was just not the space was just soul sucking. And in the midst of that, throughout this entire experience, I kept applying to WeWork. So over the course of being fired the first time throughout, I kept applying to WeWork because I heard about it. It was just supposed to be this great space and like it's a co-working space. I'm like, seems legit to me. So I keep applying. So over 4.5, almost 5 years, I applied to WeWork 10 times over 4 years. And I remember I applied while I got this other job and I was on paternity leave. I applied. They said, hey, we want to bring you in for an interview. I'm like, okay. So going for an interview. course, making no
Mhm.
money. I went back to teaching in the summer. So I was a summer school teacher interviewing and on paternity leave with my first kid. I don't advise any of that. So then I so they interviewed me and I'm like, okay, this is cool. Then they interviewed me again and I'm like, oh, this is the first time we gotten past the first, So I did it in
Yeah.
person
Alright.
and I go to my first building and I'm like, what
Mhm.
is this place? Like it's music, it's people moving in, and then like the guy at the front desk was just directing traffic. And I'm like, yo, I want to work here.
Mhm.
Then I don't hear anything from him. And I'm like, oh. Then like a month later, I get another email saying, "Hey, do you want to do your site visit?" I'm like, "Are we back?" So they're like, "When are you available?" I was like, "Yeah, whenever. Just let me know." So I do the site visit of the building, and I had an interview, and then don't hear anything from them again. A couple of weeks go
Oh,
by,
man.
come back, and they're like, "Hey, are you available to come to this event?" So I come to like 3 or 4 events in the midst of that, and like there's no commitment. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't like, am I doing well? And then I never forget this. I left summer school. Well, we had a doctor's appointment for our kid. We're in San Gabriel. We're at the Hamburger Habit, and I get a phone call from a 415 number, and I don't ever answer my phone. So I answer. I'm like, "Hello," and she's like, "Hi, this is from WeWork," and I was like, "Yes." She's like, "We want to offer you the job."
Mhm.
I said, "Cool." So she says the salary. I said, "Oh, cool. I'll take it. Just send the paper. I'll sign it." And I remember she kept saying, "You don't want to negotiate." And I'm like, "No, like you don't understand, lady. Like I've been fired so much. I worked at a I worked at a grocery store. I was an Uber driver. I worked at a dog store. The salary is the most money I've ever made in my life up until this point. I don't
Mhm.
care. And it's for a company I want to go to. I'm not gonna say, yeah, let's negotiate. And you hit me back a couple of days later, like, oh, we don't want to do it. I
Mhm,
was like, no,
mhm.
you good. And and she kept saying, you sure you don't want to negotiate? I'm like, no. What do you mean? And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, no. She's like, I'm gonna send you the offer letter, think about it, and then come back to me with a different salary number so we can. And I was like, lady, you don't understand where I've been.
Mhm.
Like, I appreciate the fact that you want me to be a proactive human being in this existence, but I'm not.
Mhm.
I got a job that I think my kid is gonna be proud of me, and I'm
Mhm.
making the most money I ever made in my life. Like, I'm not messing this one up. So I just
You shared
signed.
all of that with her, like, straight up,
Yeah,
or Oh,
yeah. I was like,
wow.
I'm not messing this up. And she's
Uh-huh.
like, are you sure you don't? I said, no, you don't get it. So I remember she sent it while we are on the phone, and I signed it while we are on the phone.
Mhm.
I didn't even look at the salary. I was just like, whatever. Got
Mhm.
my first day, and then I fell in love with co-working after that.
Mhm.
And I got to go the in and outs and we were from 14 buildings to 41 buildings. I opened like 3 or 4 of them, worked on some really
Wow.
dope projects. Helped a team open one in San Paulo, helped another team, went on a tour of like a 2-week tour of like Japan, understand like how they did their things and really got to understand the power of intentionally built space. So there's a lot of different things in the WeWork space that allows for community to be developed.
Mhm.
The width between the offices of the hallways is tinier, so you can have these crash points and all of these different physical elements, the Kelvin lighting, all these elements played into a huge role in like how you like looked at space.
Mhm.
And in January, at January 2020, I got offered another job to work in the mayor's office at their collaborative space in the arts district. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then the pandemic hit. And I'm
Wow.
like, I manage a co-working space. I'm on a facilities maintenance team, and we have like, what do we do with the building being closed?
My
And
gosh.
that was the first start of Workspace, where
Mm.
it's like, how do we? My question every day was like, how do I? It was 3 big questions that I had, but all on the same point. It was like, one, how do I keep my team from getting let go? Right.
Mhm.
2 is how do we create an experience for our members, but they don't physically need the space.
Mhm.
And then 3 is like, if I could keep my team intact, create an experience where they don't physically need the space, will the members keep paying?
Mhm.
And that was what we worked on. We worked on how to figure out how to get people engaged and active within the virtual space so that it was enough value so that they would continue to pay and keep
Mhm.
the revenue up and also ultimately keep our team intact.
Mhm.
And what I found is that I got to see the future of work, or what we call the now of work, up close.
Mhm.
And I got to see people scrambling around trying to figure out like what was next. And the third space was popping up, and
Mhm.
workspace, the day workspace became a thing was April of the pandemic was in March. So I'll say like August of 2020, the idea of workspace like happened. And
Mhm.
it was this guy, he was banging on the door. He would bang on the door every week. And I was like, what do you want? He's like, it's a global pandemic. He says, I have a wife, I have a kid, I can't do my work. I need to
Mhm.
work here. I'm like, it's a global pandemic. You cannot work here. And we did this back and forth for like 2 months. And then
Mhm.
one day I'm like, you know what? I'm in a 60,000 square foot building alone. Sure, come on in.
Social distancing? No
Yeah,
worries, no
yeah.
worries.
Yeah, it's 100 times between us. We're fine. Like we
Yeah.
got this. And he's like, okay. So he comes in, and then there was another person that came in. And before you know it, we had like 10 or 15 people who definitely were not supposed to be in the building. But I
You sure you
just
can
like
share this, on the
I'm oh,
recording?
we're sharing this.
Oh, yeah.
That was not supposed to be in the building. However, what happens is that obviously everyone was masked up, and we didn't have a single COVID-19 case throughout the entire
Wow.
pandemic. So
That is
yeah,
commendable.
yes. Not one. So it was like
Mhm.
15 of us. It was like a little micro community. And then when like the things started being released, it's like I got to see this seeing other human beings,
Mhm.
right? And it was so great, like how impactful that space was to those particular people in that time. And
Mhm.
then I said to myself, also with the guy, he said, do you think the space across the street will let me in? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, could you ask him? And when he said that, I said, is there a world where all the independent collaborative spaces can exist on a single platform, and people can come and go and find the best space where they could go? And
Mhm.
that was Workspace. And that was in 2020, 2021. And then I ended up leaving there, getting another job with another tech company. They were seed, pre-seed. So I got to work on the operations and chief of staff roles on that back end. It really got to like, oh, and that's the first instance of where I was like, I could do this founder thing, right? Whatever
Mhm.
this founder thing is, by watching other founders do it. And it
Mhm.
wasn't a situation where I was like, I can do it better than them. It was more so a situation of if they can do it, I can do it. And not because they had some deficiency. It was more like seeing it up close. I'm like, I could do that. Like,
Mhm.
because I always thought being a founder was like this, like, crazy experience where you have to be practically an expert in not only what you're building in the product, you have to have like overly crazy leadership skills. You have to do this, you have to do that. You have to have all these things. And most of them were intangible and unmeasurable. And like only certain people were born to be this founder thing, right?
Mhm.
But in my other capacities, I got to see it up close. I'm like, these are just regular people with a vision and want to solve a problem. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm a regular person with a vision and I want to solve a problem. So why can't I solve the problem? And so that's when now full time working on Workspace full time. And it's really, like our thesis is that like, work shouldn't suck. Like it
Mhm.
just shouldn't. And if we're gonna spend 67% of our life doing this thing, we might as well do it with people in places that we like that really speak to who we are as people. That was
Mhm.
a very long-winded answer, but that's all right, because it's my time to talk.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, like, you weren't kidding when you said that it was a very unique and honestly broad walk to entrepreneurship. I'm just I'm blown away by like the level of detail that you just described every step that you took, sort of, whether you knew it or not, that brought you closer to creating Workspace and sort of becoming who you are today. Um, so yeah, there are definitely parts of that story I want to unpack. Um, Starting with just the amount of rejection that you had to face um leading up to this moment. Um and I know you talked about it very nonchalantly just now, but a lot of founders, and I think just, even young professionals, like, go through that, and like there's not a lot of people who are willing to be vulnerable about that, or even, get back up after they're knocked down. So I just want to know sort of what failure felt like in the moments that you experienced it. Um, you also mentioned that it was just a mix of professional as well as personal failure that sort of pushed you
Mhm.
towards entrepreneurship. So what did that look like? How did that feel? And then how did you manage to stay positive despite, all of those things going on?
That's a good question because I think like there's three instances of when I was like I've hit complete and utter rock bottom, right?
Mm,
The first one was after I got fired from the first job. It was the way they fired me, right? It
mm-hmm.
was I got fired on I got officially notified to I got fired on the 13th of June 2013 on a Thursday, and it was at 1:47 p.m. I never forget it.
Holy
I was
cow.
I was so frustrated at my desk,
Mm,
so frustrated because I'm like I'm applying for these different jobs. They're trying to demote me, all of this stuff. I'm like, and I said, I just want to quit. I don't want to do that. I said it to myself. I said that at like 1:35. At 1:47, I get a ping from my manager, and she's like, "Can you meet me in the conference room?" Like, for what? Like, lady, I don't vibe with you. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I walk
mm-hmm.
in, it's my manager, the director, and like one of my colleagues, and they're like, unfortunately, we're gonna let you go. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't do nothing. I was like, what are you talking about? And then they said, but we want you to come in on the 14th and apologize to the team for your actions, but your last real day is going to be on the 17th. And I'm like, so you're going to fire me and then embarrass me? Like, that's not cool. So then they said, but let
Wow.
us know by the end of the day whatever you want to decide to do. And I'm like, yo, so you want me to, how are you going to pop me? You're going to make me apologize to the team for my antics because they said I was such a positive person on the team, and people will never believe that, like, I got let go without cause. And I'm like, but like, I did get let go without cause. Like, that's the truth. And then you want me to come back on the 17th? So I was like, I'm at the time, and still to this day, I was super agreeable. I was like, yeah, I could do it. Like, it was no sweat off my back. I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
just like walk in peace. And I remember I come home and like my mom's like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah." And I just started crying and like I broke completely down. I was like, "I didn't do nothing wrong." My mom's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yeah, but just like it's just life." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like, I get that, but like I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't do anything egregious. I didn't do anything. Like, this is so that was rock bottom one. And then rock bottom two, I think is when I got my reject letter from Trader Joe's.
Mm-hmm.
Uh I was like, what? like y'all pass it on me too? And then I ended up getting a job at another store. And I was for the personal failure, I was dating this girl at the time. And I was at Trader Joe's. She was getting upset. We were in a long distance relationship. And what really stood out there is that I'll never forget this. That was rock bottom number two. Is that I was outside. We're going back and forth. She's like, "You don't want to see me relationship stuff," and I'm like, "I do, but I can't afford to. Like, I'm working at Trader Joe's now. Like, it's not like how I had before. Like, so." I remember pushing the baskets and I'm on my phone. I'm talking to her, and she goes, "You know what? I'm just done with you." I'm like, all right. You say
Oh
this every
boy.
week. And she goes, but you know why I'm done with you?
Oh
And
wow.
looking back on it, I said to myself, why am I even gonna answer that? I should just take my pride and say, yeah. And I said, why? Because also I'm young and I'm early stage, early
Mm-hmm.
20s. And she goes, because you know what you're doing right now? And I'm like, I should stop again, but I didn't. I said,
Mm-hmm.
what? She said, you're just pushing the baskets at Trader Joe's and hung up.
Oh
And I
man.
went, and I said, how does she know? Like that was my original, I remember my first, like, I think I was more upset the fact that like she guessed exactly what I was doing in that moment. And I'm like, and I was like, how does she know? Like, well, oh. So then again, I'm like, all right. So I had to like restructure. And then the third, like I think the rock bottom of the rock bottom. I kept for some reason in my life I just keep going lower and lower and lower, lower and lower. um was was at I remember like sitting there. I think I like and I just remember just sitting there, just like, what happened? Like, what'd you do? Like, how did you
Mhm.
get here? And I was just, and I remember like I had a friend who invited me to lunch, and I was like, oh yeah, bro, I can't go. And he's like, well, why not? I said, oh, because it's lunch. And he goes, well, like, come with me to lunch. I said, nah, I can't go to lunch because it's lunchtime and I don't have a job. And I only go out after 5 during the week.
Mm.
So people think I have a job. So you want me out and about during the day? No. I am. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I don't. And then I think about that. And that was a moment where I was just sitting on my couch during the day trying to figure my life out, applying for
Mhm.
jobs, updating my resume, and all of those things. And really, 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 that moment, I was like, you really don't go outside during the day. Like, I used to wake up at 6 a.m., go out, go get something to eat, come back, lock myself in the house until 5:45. And then I would go out, but I would like I would dress up in like work clothes and like
Uh-huh.
bounce around and stuff.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's another level of effort.
Yeah, I didn't play around. And it was
Yeah.
just like to save honestly the embarrassment, I think, of, of not being able to effectively keep a job. And I think that like not to effectively, keep a job. And I just think like, all the opportunities and all the situations that happen coming up, working in the different spaces, it was definitely an ego bruise. And the way I remain positive in all of that, I think, obviously putting my faith first was 100% it. And I
Mhm.
think the other part that like kept me going is that I remember kept telling myself, you have the unique ability, like you only get to start over so many times in life, right? You go
Mhm.
through school, you graduate high school, that's the start over moment. Then
Mhm.
you go to college, that's the start over moment. Then you graduate college, that's the start off moment. And after that, that's pretty much all the chances you get to start over. You're pretty much on this path. And I said,
Mhm.
you have the unique ability. You started over, at this rate, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times. And you have this strange ability to keep starting over and try something new. So, like, it sucks now, right? It's
Mhm.
horrible now. But if you don't like it, just do something else. And I think like
Mhm.
that's been a driving force of like, I don't like this, but I found out in that process that us as just people, we have the innate immense ability to do the ability to do anything. And I think in those moments, like those are the things that really helped me like realize like I have the infinite ability to do anything.
Mm.
So I'm just gonna keep trying stuff and hopefully something sticks. And as of 2025, Workspace is sticking.
Nice. I love that, especially that last part. Um, wow, just like being able to turn around, like what I think many people just hearing your story would see is like, oh man, you're constantly getting beat down, you're constantly restarting. Seeing that as opportunity rather than, discouragement is huge. Um, and I know you shared briefly that it's because of these failures that led you to Workspace, you remain positive, but you also remain grateful for those. Like, what does it take to make that choice to continue looking at like failure as like, um, something that you accept as a part of your journey? What does that
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, I think it's more so like it's something that happened. I think like, it's a crazy other thing. Like last year I had a medical emergency. I was sitting in the hospital bed looking up at the sky.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
remember sitting there. I have a really weird story, but I remember sitting there and I said to myself, like, I was watching this video and they said, people usually get deeper and deeper into faith when their world is crazy, like haywire. And then as soon as it settles down, they forget the faith and they go do
Hmm.
whatever they're gonna do.
Hmm.
And like you can't keep picking and choosing when you want to be dedicated to the process and be respectful of the cosmos or the energy that's around you. You can't pick and choose.
Hmm.
And I think when I think about failure and rejection and things like that, it's that like I can't pick and choose when I want to be grateful. I have to either
Hmm.
be grateful for it all or I cannot be grateful at all, right?
Mhm.
I never thought I would ever quote the great 50 Cent. It's something akin to where he's like, you can't pray and worry at the same time. You can't, because if you pray and then worry, you just negated the prayer.
Right, right.
But if you worry all the time and then you pray, you literally are negate. Like it's like you can't do both. You got to
It's,
pick or
like,
choose.
contradictory, yeah.
Yeah, and I think when I think about being gracious, it's like I can't be only appreciative of the good things
Mhm,
and be like all the bad things are horrible. Like the bad things are bad. Like that's the like and they're not necessarily bad things. It's just the part of life that like I didn't expect or like, right? Because really what it
mhm,
is. Like I have to embrace that because it allowed for me to gain such a great perspective and the why of why this company even existed. Because if I didn't have these experiences, I would, if I didn't have these experiences, Workspace today would still be there's people over here who need access to space, and there's
mhm,
space over here, let's match them up. But
mhm,
now it's like physical space and everything plays such a huge role in what we do and how we show up and how we feel about ourselves is
mhm,
that how do we then expect people to show up and be their best selves if they're working in a built environment that's not built for them? I don't get to that conclusion without this hell of a journey, right? I still would be trying to go up and pitch this story about people needing something. It's like, no, it's bigger than us. Like
mm.
if I can help someone have a great experience because they found the right space for their employees, that's a win.
Yeah, totally. Um, and I think that adds, like, a whole 'nother depth to the work that you do, a whole 'nother level of meaning and compassion, I think, for the people that, you're serving with Workspace. And so, yeah, I think that makes a good transition into talking about what you're working on today. Um, and I just want to read off a couple milestones that you've been able to celebrate with Workspace, the accomplishments that you've made just in the past year from launching your first product to achieving first revenue, and expanding to 100 plus locations, which is absolutely incredible. And it sounds like this year's already off to a great start. You received a nomination from the Global Startup Awards, which is incredible. And so, yeah, if you could sum up, Workspace's mission in like one sentence, what you're trying to accomplish, and what that means to you, what would you share?
That's I would say that the thing I would say that, you know, our platform ensures seamless access to space
Hmm.
that fit unique needs for modern professionals, enabling teams to focus on their work and not their workspace. If I was to sum it all up.
I like that. I like that. And yeah, so we're super excited to see where you'll go next, in this upcoming year and the years to come. Just one aspect of the business that we haven't really talked about that I've been personally curious about is the impact that community has on the work that you do. Um, I've seen you acknowledging sort of like the individuals that reach out to you, that have shared how Workspace has impacted them. Um, and, I've seen you acknowledging all of these different perspectives that are coming in. So, how would you say that, like, recognizing the sort of impact that you're making, what does how does that impact you and the work that you do?
I think to be honest, like this is gonna sound crazy, like don't
No,
do
go
it,
for it.
but I don't think about it.
Oh.
Yeah, like it doesn't like cross my mind. Like I think that like I'm just super like I think I don't think about it because I know deep down inside I'm not even supposed to be here, you know? Like
Mm,
if you look at my story, how I grew up, how I, even the medical emergency from last year, like I'm not supposed to be here. And the fact that like for some strange reason I have been blessed to be here, like it's just I'm just thankful for it all. And I think that the stories that do help that like make it real are, when we hear from our customers and then their customers are like, oh, this is the right space. Or when I talk to, other entrepreneurs and it's like, and they're like, oh, well, can you help me find a space? And it's like, oh yeah, this is a great space. Or understanding like the different needs that people have, like those are all like really good feel good things. But like do like they make me like, oh, let's keep going. It's like, no, what really makes me keep going is and like what like the feedback that like it matters the most is that sometimes I have my 7-year-old like next to me and listen to calls. And when I get off the call, like he'll like we'll do like a debrief. And like I think like that's what means the most, right? Where it's like
Hmm.
I he thinks I'm cool. And I'm not gonna like like if I want to like like as a parent, I want to be the hot dad and I want to be the cool dad. Like I'm not gonna, and the fact that like I'll get off a call and he goes, okay, so what was that? And I get to explain it to him, and he's like he doesn't really get it, but like he's excited, to just everything that I do. Like I think he's the one that because even with my latest firing that I had a couple of years ago, I remember I told him, I said, man, I got fired. He was like, oh no. I said, no, it's okay. I said, because we could just start over. And I remember I go to his class the next day. I have all these little like first graders asking me, like, we heard you got fired. Are you
Oh my
okay?
gosh.
And I'm looking at all these little first graders and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then one girl, she was like, I don't know. I told my mommy you got fired, and she said, "Oh no." But then I told her that he says he's okay. And I said, like, as long as that grade, that class still thinks I'm cool and whatnot, I feel like that's the driving force of community is the
Hmm.
fact that like giving these kids the ability to think about a career path that's significantly different and that to take the failure or the thing with a grain of salt to keep pushing. Like if I would say like that's the impact on the community, then yeah, I think the other impacts, of having people in the right space so that they can be their best selves are great.
Hmm.
But like, it's gonna sound strange, like it's weird, like none of that's really top of mind. It's more so that like I just want people. I think the top of mind aspect is that if if people could just be in a better space and we can solve really hard, we can solve hard, complex problems, then I am more than appreciative of the fact that we could even workspace could be even in that conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. That experience with the first grade classroom is just too funny. And honestly, I think kids like from elementary school to like high school are maybe some of the scariest and most intimidating audiences, to interact with.
Yes.
So, kudos.
Yes, let me tell you about it. That they are. I've never had a level of insecurity being. I'm insecure, but as a parent going to school, like
Hmm.
I'm so insecure as a parent that I make sure that like I'm wearing the right shoes, that I got on the right outfit, because I
Hmm.
don't need these middle schoolers saying something to me. And because they're gonna embarrass me, and I'm gonna feel some kind of way because it's like I don't what am I gonna say back to a middle schooler? Like yeah, you're
Right.
right. Yeah, you're right. Like one said I look like a basketball coach, and like I was like I don't even know how do I respond to that.
I can give you no advice. That is so out of
Yeah,
pocket.
he's like hey coach, and I went
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a coach. And and then every time I see, he's like, hey, coach. And I'm like, you know I'm not a coach. And then all the little
Hmm.
kids start snickering. And I told him, like, bro, you know I'm not a coach. He's like, hey, coach. And I'm like, oh,
Oh man, they can be brutal. But
they're brutal.
yeah, but on a more serious note, I actually really admire that you're able to be like so honest with your son. I think if anything, that shows that, you're not as insecure of a parent as you think you are, being able to be like transparent about your experiences. And then, hopefully helping them learn from that. Um, and seeing you like grow from that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're running a little bit over time, so I think we're
Okay.
just gonna hop straight to some of our last questions,
Yes.
which will be some takeaways and last words. So, from this conversation, honestly, if I could, if I've learned anything about you, Stephen, is that, you're hardworking, you don't mind being scrappy, and being gritty on the journey to being a founder. Um, and like you're incredibly resilient. I mean, seriously, I I can't even imagine the amount of strength that, you have to just get back up after being knocked down. And then of course, still refusing to sort of, go with like the flow that everyone's been working with and not being afraid to like make your own way. Um, so so I think these are some traits that are most admirable about you. And I'm just curious, how do these sort of play into or change your perspective on work? And why do you think it's important to continue embracing these traits?
Um, I would say that it's the only way, right? Like, I don't know any other way. And I think it's super important because you don't know what life's gonna throw at you. And it's like at some point you just gotta do it, right? Like, and I feel like that's why they're so important because like all of those traits and all of my experiences, it's like I think a lot of the failures are because I was trying to find this cutesy rootsy strategic way to do it. And in actuality, I just have to just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I think like that's the one thing that like I think what it has pertaining to my perspective on work is that you gotta follow your process and whatever
Mm-hmm.
that process is, like whatever works for you, you gotta follow your process. And I think that you'll are you gonna have the hockey stick of success? Possibly. Are you gonna have a really like plateaued success? That's real. But if you go with your process and do it your way, with having those that are around you to help guide and steer on some different things, at the end of it, will you look back and be crazy satisfied and crazy appreciative of the journey? Because you'll figure out that you fell in love with the process, and wherever the destination is just a part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be all worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I guess you kind of answered my last question with that one. Uh, if there's any advice or encouragement for founders on their own startup journey. Um, but if there's anything else you'd like to share on that.
Um, I would say the only advice that like someone has given me, and the reason why we have revenue
I like the honesty.
is that you can pitch, you can craft a great story, you can have beautifully designed pitch deck, the most best storytelling ever. But at some point, you're gonna have to go into the back alley, open your coat, and just start slinging. Like at some point. And and when you do that, you'll see all the other things that you've been working on, they'll actually start to move, they'll take its next step. But
Hmm.
until as a founder you commit to opening the coat, until you decide to open the code, you're gonna see incremental success. But like for you to like really see those leaps and bounds that you want to see, you gotta go in the back alley and open the code. And that's a
Oh
quote
man.
from that's actually a quote from our advisor. He said that, and he said that on a Monday, no Tuesday, and we had our first customer on Thursday.
Wow. So it works.
It works.
Wow. Forgive me if I was like silent after you said that at first. I was a bit stunned, but that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, that's yeah, it works.
It
And that's what we've
works.
been doing. It's like, oh, we're gonna get this pitch, we're gonna get these investors. Yes, but I need to go in the bag real quick. And that's our it's funny, that's our company hashtag now. You probably see it on posts. It's like
Hmm.
hashtag back alley, hashtag open the code.
Um, and now we know what that means.
Yeah.
Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Stephen, getting to know you and getting to hear from your founder story. I think you've said many things that founders can relate to and honestly need to hear on their journey. So I really appreciate you taking the time uh, to share with us today.
No, please, thank you so much for having me. Like this is like the best thing I've done, at least up until this point. So I'm just so thankful to be here and to share my story, and hopefully, it helps at least somebody.
Hmm. Yeah, and I bet it will.
Yeah.
But I think that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
So thank you so much again. Um,
Thank you.
and we'll sign off here.
Yes.